Okay, haven't heard any dings for a little bit now, so I think we can get started. Thanks everyone for attending our instant discounts mid-year kickoff. We really appreciate you all being here. I know you all have been anxious to hear about how the midstream offer is going to be operating for the last half of the year. So we're going to give you those updates. We've got a lot to share, and let's go and get started. So, brief agenda, we will go over some program reminders, almost like a mini orientation session. We have some, of course, veteran distributors on here, and then we have some newer distributors as well. So we'd like to go over some of the key points of the offer to make sure everyone is on the same page and hopefully answer any questions that some distributors may have on some of the program functions and requirements. And then we will go into some of the measure changes. I'll give a brief overview of a couple of the legislative policies that have been impactful for the lighting market here in Oregon, and then talk about how that impacts our measures and incentives, give an overview on that. Then we'll move into some more targeted program updates. So we have some updates to our processes regarding verifications, our pre-authorizations, and some changes to the sales upload template that we'd like you all to be aware of. And then we'll go into our more cohesive or larger scale incentive updates per measure. So we will share those with you and go through the details on all of those. And then we'll open it up to some Q&A at the end. And for speakers, I'll introduce myself and then ask the other speakers to introduce themselves too. So I'm Cameron Walsh, Program Manager on Business Lighting Offer. Here, I'm seeing the mid-year kickoff for instant discounts. Pass it to Zoe.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zoe, and I'm a program specialist on the team. You've most likely seen my emails in regards to verifications. I'll pass to Ash.
She might be muted, actually, now that I'm seeing her. I'll allow this. Okay, Ash, you should be able to.
Sorry, Cameron said I couldn't say hi to you guys, but no. Hi, I'm Ashley Zachman. I'm here to support the midstream process. So I hope that anytime you reach out to Spencer or Carrie, if you need something from me, pass it along. I'm happy to help. And I'll pass it to Spencer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really appreciate you making it here. I'm Spencer Young. I am the Market Outreach Manager. I am the one that always, not always, but gets you guys the bad news about delayed projects and things like that. I do more than that, I think.
All right. Let's move forward then to program reminders, and I'll pass it back to Spencer.
Awesome. So we just wanted to give everyone a sort of quick refresher for those of you who've been doing this for a long time. Maybe there might be some things that you've sort of forgotten how to do or just slipped your mind. So give you guys a quick refresher. And then for any of the new distributors, this is a reminder from some of the things we talked about on your onboarding training. So first of all, anytime throughout the year, if anyone has any questions, needs reminders about how to do things, just unsure about any aspect of the program, please reach out to Carrie or I. We'd be more than happy to do some quick trainings, or if you have new members on your team, we can do the whole onboarding training again. But any questions, any concerns, please reach out to us. We love helping people out. So the most important thing today is that we are officially going to go live again for the ISTENS discounts on July 24th. This means that you will again be able to validate products. Any sales made after July 1st, you're going to definitely need to validate products again if the last time you validated the products were before July 1st. And then as a constant, please make sure you validate the products before you sell them. If you put a sales date in the sales data upload that is after the date that you validated the product, you will get an error. So this is just a good practice, and it's important to have a successful sales data upload. Quick touch on customer purchaser incentives. These are the more difficult aspects of the program sometimes, but we do ask that you include the language on the customer's invoice to remind them that there is the 90-day installation requirement. It doesn't have to be super big. It just has to be clear, readable from both your customer's perspective as well as our perspective. I know that some of the larger distributors have issues with editing their invoices because of the corporate aspect of things. So if that is something you have been struggling with or been unable to do, please reach out to me and we can figure out a way to get it on there and make it legible. We also really need two things. We want to see that the incentive amounts as well as the retail price and the amount the customer paid is on there. We definitely need to see the incentive amount, and then we want to see language on the invoice that attributes the incentive to Energy Trust of Oregon's instant discount business lighting program. And again, that's kind of wordy. It's maybe challenging to add that line item on some invoices, but please, if you have any questions, you don't think you can do this, definitely reach out to us sooner rather than later, because the more transparent you are with us, the more likely we are to fix and troubleshoot any issues you're facing. Again, I want to touch on the 90-day installation requirement. If you sell a massive project and it's just very unlikely that it's going to get installed within 90 days, please phase the project. What we mean by this is, sell the project, deliver 1/3 of the project, give them 90 days, deliver another third of the project, give them 90 days and another third of the project, and give them 90 days to finish the installation. That way, we can ensure that the 90-day timeline is met. The final thing on this slide that I want to touch on is sales data uploads must be made within 60 days of the sales date or the delivery dates. If you're unable to do this, reach out as soon as possible so that we can begin a exemption process. It takes a little while, so we really want you to get it in within 60 days, but we can do our best to sort of fix any uploads that got buried under a stack of other things and you found it, 6 months later. Next slide, please. Quick reminder on budget allocations. Budget allocations are by utility service territories, so they are split between PGE and PAC Power. Please remember that we are unable to just move money between the two utilities easily. We actually can't do that at all. So if you do want an increase of one utility or any increase at all, please send a formal request over to midstreamlighting@energytrust.org. Carrie sent out the sort of step-by-step guide on how to do that. So if you need a reminder, reach out to Carrie or I, and we can definitely do that. And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are going to be accepting budget increases at the end of every month going forward, whereas before we were waiting to the end of every quarter. So if you want a budget increase, please shoot an email over to midstreamlighting@energytrust.org. Heather?
Sorry, Spencer, we are not necessarily changing the process. What I would say is that you can submit a budget increase request at any time, and then we will review. But the current process is that we're reviewing those at the end of each quarter. If there's something that's happening in between the quarter that you need to talk with us about, we're more than happy to talk with you about it. And but the process is you can submit it at any time, to clarify.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. I appreciate that. Cool. So moving on to the pre-authorizations. Excuse me. Friendly reminder, pre-authorizations that have been approved are not a guarantee of incentives. So a quick hypothetical is if you have, a $10,000 budget allocation to your PGE budget, and you have a $15,000 PGE project, if you submit the pre-authorization for the $15,000 project, there's a very strong chance that the pre-authorization will be approved. However, it doesn't mean that you have just been granted a $5,000 budget increase. So please keep that in mind because it can get very tricky with that. And then quick reminder, final incentives are always based on the sales date. So if you sold projects before 6/30, then you still have access to those incentives. If you sold projects from 7/1 forward, then you will have access to the new incentives. If you have any questions, like I said, please reach out to Carrie or I. But on Program Partner Central, there are a lot of really useful resources. If you go under Program Information tab, Resources tab, there's the Distributor Handbook, which has all the information from the onboarding slides that I do. There's also a Program Partner Central how-to guide. There's a couple other really useful tools on there. So please, after this, have a quick look to see what there is on there, because you might be able to troubleshoot yourself instead of having to wait for Carrie and I to get back to you. Quick reminder about verifications. Please let your customers and purchasers know that we will most likely be reaching out. We want them to sort of be expecting us, just so it's a lot easier when we can get a hold of them and get this out of the way and finalize the project once they know that we'll be reaching out to them. So please, quick reminder, Energy Trust and Clear Result are going to be reaching out to verify the project. That's it. And then the final thing about verifications that I want to touch on is that going forward, if we cannot confirm that the sensors were installed and commissioned correctly, you are risking your incentives on that project. It's absolutely critical that you ensure your purchasers will commission their controls correctly and discuss this with customers. Because if the customers are unable to use the commissioned product, then it's very unlikely that we are going to meet our savings for that project. We have a duty to ensure that the higher incentives are directly related to an increase in savings of energy savings. So control savings come through commissioning, like I just said. Again, just want to, friendly reminder that if you don't do these things, then you are putting your incentives at risk. And then just going back to the top, anytime you have any questions, concerns, new people on your team, need more training, Carrie and I love to do this. So please reach out. If you're tired of hearing from me, which I totally get, talk to Carrie. She's great. And next slide, please. Boom.
Okay, thank you, Spencer. One housekeeping item I failed to mention at the beginning in terms of Q&A. So we will have a section at the end to answer any questions you have. You can put questions in the chat, and we will do our best to look at those and get back to you during the presentation, or we'll call those out specifically at the end during the Q&A section. So wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody. All right, measure changes. So quick review on the policy side that is really driving the changes that that we'll get to in a moment on the offer. So HB 2531, I think most are aware that this bans the sale or distribution of fluorescent lamps, fixtures, starting at the beginning, really fully in effect at the beginning of this year. Energy Trust did have a grace period to allow incentives for products through June 30th, which is why we are having this relaunch and why some of the measures that we'll go over have those impacts. So that the idea of that bill and kind of the impact that we have to work with is that this removes fluorescent technology as a purchasing option for customers within the state of Oregon. Because that's the law, we have to work with that as our as we work on designing this offer. So because this removes that purchasing option for customers, that impacts available measures in the business lighting offers as a whole. I will say the midstream offer has higher impacts from this as compared to standard downstream offer. But we're going to focus on just the midstream instant discounts offer in this presentation. So that's 2531. I think that's been in people's awareness and consciousness for a while. And I'll move on now to a newer one, 2307, which some may not be aware of. So 2307 was recently signed into law just this May. And what this does is it extends the sales ban for school districts. So school districts are able to purchase fluorescent technologies until 2030. So this was in recognition for the challenges that school districts face when they update their facilities. And yeah, like I said, this law just it extends that timeline for the ban for school districts. A note on school districts: this does not encompass private schools, colleges and universities, or any non-district affiliated charter schools. This is public K through 12 schools. So it is limited in that way, but it's a way for the state to try to help out these districts. And I will note the delay that you all noticed in kind of knowing what's happening with this offer is due to this bill. You can see this was signed in very recently. And so we and Energy Trust were working really hard to incorporate what this means and what we're able to offer through the instant discounts offer with this provision. So that was a large part of why we're looking into July. So with these two bills, we can move on to an overview of some of the measure changes we're going to see. So we've now broken projects out into schools and non-schools for those reasons. For non-school projects, the following measures are no longer offered. So we can't offer TLEDs anymore. We can't offer interior fixtures where it's just a fixture only. To be specific, we are able to offer interior fixtures paired with LLCs, but just interior fixtures with no controls We can no longer offer those for non-schools. And pin-based CFLs are also not offerable anymore. But then when we go down to school districts, all of those previous measures are active. So we can include TLEDs, we can include interior fixtures where it's just the core fixture. However, pin-based CFLs are still off the table for schools. So those are the major differences in terms of what is available for these two different types of projects. And then move down to the next slide. With this split between schools and non-schools, and the legislative impacts I was just touching on, we have some incentive changes that I'll do an overview here, and then after we get through some of them process updates and program updates, I'll go into more specifics about those incentives. But in general, where we see incentive increases compared to last year are advanced control measures and school measures. So you will see that school project measures that are available for school projects sometimes will have an increased incentive over the non-schools measures. Where we will see incentive decreases, these are driven by the maximum allowable incentive that we are allowed to offer. This is really driven by the legislation, 2531 in particular. The major impact that had is it really lowered the incentive that we were allowed to offer. So where you'll see decreases, that's the main driver. We just are not able to offer as high an incentive anymore on some measures. And with that, we offered as high an incentive as we could. So we went really right up to that maximum incentive cap on these to try to offset that decrease. But there are going to be incentive decreases that we will see momentarily. And that is the measure changes and incentive changes overview. I'll pass it to Zoe for some program updates.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So as you all know, we've been doing verifications and we'll continue to pull 3 types. The invoice verification, which verifies that sales data matches the original purchaser invoice. A phone verification where we contact the purchaser via phone and verify the address, product type, completion date, and quantities. And our in-field verification where our account managers visit site and verify that all of the equipment is installed on site. So those 3 types of verifications have not changed. Can go to the next slide. Perfect. So this shows kind of where some things have changed. We're increasing the amount of verifications that we pull, and we're focusing specifically on verifications for schools projects and projects with controls. So for non-control sites, we'll be pulling 25% of all submissions. For school sites, we'll be pulling 50% of all submissions. And then for control sites, we'll be pulling 50% of all submissions. And I also just want to call out that field verifications will be mandatory for all projects that have incentives of $15,000 or greater. And again, just want to hammer home that for the control sites, if we cannot confirm that the sensor installation was commissioned, you will risk your incentive. It's critical that you ensure that your purchaser will commission their controls and discuss the controls with the end use customer. This will really help with the verification process when we go on site and they already know that they have, controls in X, Y, and Z room. And this is really because we have a duty to ensure that the higher incentives are directly related to an increase in savings, and control savings come through that commissioning. So again, your incentive will be at risk if we can't confirm that the controls were commissioned. So that's just really important piece. Yeah, and we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So for project pre-authorizations, we do have an update to our thresholds. So the incentive threshold is now anything over $4,500 and anything with a unit quantity over 100. For context, previously the incentive threshold was $7,000, and we've updated this to align with incentive decreases. We also want to ensure that folks remember to ensure that measures selected are appropriate for the building type. So for example, a school's measure submitted for a non-school building will be rejected. So always just keep an eye on the building type that you're choosing. And this last piece, so submissions are required within 3 months of approval, or the pre-authorization will become inactive and require a resubmission. This is just because it's difficult to track on pre-auths that are still active projects, especially for older submissions. So this will just help us track on all of your projects more easily. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Steal it from Zoe. We are making a small change to the sales upload template. You'll notice we're moving the building type. And you're like, why? Why make another change? This one's actually for you. With adding schools incentives, it made the product type list about 80 products. And rather than have you scroll for a really long time to find what you're looking for, we've made it so that when you select public K through 12 schools on building type, you'll only get one list. I apologize, at the time of making this, I didn't have the list of incentives. So that's the ABC's example. And if you select anything else, you'll get the other product type list. And you should also notice this similar change on the pre-authorization form. If you've never used it before, the product type will get you 2 different product lists. And I think I'm passing it back to Cam or Spencer.
Thanks, Ash. All right, probably the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's dig into the incentives here. Okay, so on these tables, you'll see that we've broken incentives out into what we're calling the market incentive, which is just the non-schools incentive. So we've got the market incentive and then the schools incentive. So HIDs, they are the same for both across the board. So ranging from $18 to $60, depending on the wattage. And then moving down to TLEDs, you can see now things starting to change a little bit. So market incentive, TLEDs are not offered for non-schools projects because of 2531. So that's not applicable here. But on the right are the school incentives for each of the foot lengths of TLEDs. This is for all types of TLEDs, A, B, and C. And yeah, we're happy that we can offer schools TLEDs. That was a really big thing and a really critical piece of 2307 that we were able to allow to pass on to schools. So we think that's a big thing. All right, that's TLEDs. Let's go to interior fixtures. So these tables are now, we are talking about controls incentives as well. So there's now these 2 columns inside the different market types. So within market and schools, we have our fixture only incentives and then our LLC incentives that are added with the fixture. So market for interior fixture only, again, we're not able to offer those because of 2531 for non-schools, but for schools, we are able to offer those. Another big win due to 2307. We can keep those alive with school districts. And then we have our each wattage fixture paired with LLLC. We have our incentives there. That lowest wattage bucket, 25 watts or less, those are not offered even with controls. That's because the controlled wattage is just too little to really garner the amount of savings that is needed to be cost effective. So less than 25 watts, we're not able to offer, but you can see the incentives here for the other wattage bands. And you'll also notice that schools incentives with controls are higher. And I spoke about that earlier. That's due to the maximum incentive caps that we have to work with on the non-schools market incentive side. So that's the interior fixtures. High and low bays, same format here. And you can see our fixtures. So probably one of the largest incentive decreases for non-schools is with high and low bay fixtures. You can see that in the market incentive, $5 for 40 to 90 watt, all the way up to 50 to 300 watt. Again, directly related to the legislative impacts that we had to work with. And you can see how that then compares with the school offering. So we're able to offer higher incentives for those school districts. And yeah, that's high and low bays. Our exterior fixtures. Also, one of the higher impact measures with respect to 2531 and incentive decreases for the market incentive, and in particular, the lower wattage ranges. So you can see here, we have our recessed can fixtures with their incentive schools are higher. And then for the lowest wattage range of exterior fixtures, it's the same between the market and schools incentive offerings. Again, that's just because of the lower wattage. But then they start to differentiate due to those incentive caps we have to work with on the market side. And you can see these the incentive impacts here. I will say, obviously, there's a lot of measures here and a lot of changes, and there's some more added complexity here with schools projects. You will all see these incentive tables and measures in the schedule amendments that will be going out to you, I believe by end of day today. You'll be able to see those and sign them, return them back to us. And you can always check there. And then in the future, we will be updating also the Energy Trust website where you can reference all of these incentives. All right, before we also just real quick before we go into Q&A, I do want to do a call out because we know that a lot of you all participate in downstream and the standard offer. So we're still finalizing those measures and incentives, but there will be a compelling set of offers. Like I said earlier, midstream actually had the greater impact comparatively, it's looking like. So we still have plenty to offer on the standard offer, and we'll be sharing those incentives and numbers at our Trade Ally seminars on the 15th through the 17th, and then the online webinar if you all are not able to make it on August 6th. So we encourage you all to attend, and I will hope to see you there. And for any questions, we'll be posting other information on these launches on Insider. And you can also find registration links for those seminars there as well. So that really wraps up the the content portion, we can open it up for Q&A. Any questions? Oh, actually, I see we have some in the chat. Let me see if, okay, Jeff asking if we are sharing the slides. Yes, we will make the slides available as well. I'll share those out after this concludes. Any other questions? You can raise your hand or type in the chat.
Cam, I see a question from Josh in the chat as well. Josh asked, will the 60-day window be extended since we haven't been able to do any sales uploads all month? We'll have sales from the start of June we'll need to work through. Josh and everyone else, just to clarify, you can still do sales uploads now for anything in June. The incentives up until June 30 are still valid for any sales you did in June, and you can upload them at any point. What's not available right now, but will be available on July 24th, is to validate product for sales that are made during the month of July. So if you have any concerns about sales, you can't actually validate the product and confirm the sale until the 24th once the product validation is available. But those incentives are going to be valid for sales made in July. If you're having if you do have challenges when it gets into August on any of those, definitely reach out to Carrie and Spencer, or just Midstream Lighting at energytrust.org, and we can work through that with you. I hope that clarifies your question.
Any other questions? Just seeing something come in. From Randy, we have an order with fixtures that the customer picked up on 6/30, but did not invoice till 7/1. Will you be able to claim? I assume that question is for, will you be able to claim incentives on 6/30, or the incentives that were active on 6/30 versus the incentives that I just shared today? I think the way I'm interpreting that information, and we can talk about this online if there's some more detail, but it sounds like that sale occurred before 6/30 and the customer picked it up. So that's what I would expect to see on the sales template that you would upload. And because of that, that would be the incentives claim would be those that were active on 6/30 and not the ones that I just shared. Let me know if I got that right. I made some assumptions in what you posted. Okay, great. Hand up from Ken.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the program goes live on July 24th, but is it retroactive to July 1st?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Kind of buried in that answer that I should say as well. So it is retroactive. A lot of the reasoning for the offer being active on the 24th is back-end systems that need to be updated. So really, you aren't able to validate products is really one of the main things right now. And that is when the offer will open and you'll be able to validate products again. So technically, these incentives are effective for sales beginning on January 1st.
Cam, did you mean July 1st, not
Oh, yes,
January?
yes, sorry. July 1st. We're in July. Thanks, Mike.
So that brings up a follow-up question. If it's retroactive to July 1st, but we can't validate products, yet we have to invoice our customers, let's say on July 2nd, how do we do it?
Yeah, I think that is something we can take offline. If that's a situation that you're dealing with, reach out to Spencer and we can see what we know that is happening. And that is a possibility. So let's talk about that specific situation and see what we can do there.
Can I just say something real quick? I am having Trevor put Carrie and my email addresses in the chat. Copy them down, email them all the time. Like I said, we are here to answer questions and help you guys continue to be successful within the program.
All right. Well, with that lead in, if you do think of any other questions, like Spencer said, please email. We are happy to answer, and we'll be sharing this slide deck out, and it will be accessible so you all can reference it in the future in case you have any other questions. And thank you all for attending. Excited for the end of this year. It's going to be a good one. And again, another plug for the Trade Ally seminars happening next week. I hope to see some or all of you there. And if not, we'll catch you on the webinar in August. Take care, everybody.